What's up, guys? Eric here, Mr. Fired Up Wealth. When you think about cybersecurity, when you think about cyber attacks and hackers, obviously that the software as a service, the SaaS solutions that we talk about on the channel are very important at stopping those threats, threat prevention. But what about the human layer? What about the human element? That's really the first line of defense. So when you think about that, how do you train your employees up to know what not to do? Not to click a phishing email, because that in itself can be more important than any solution that your organization could subscribe to. On my last video, I talked about AI stocks that are cybersecurity related, and one of the bonus picks was KnowBe4. I had overwhelming demand. So many people asking me to do a deeper dive analysis on the stock, and so that's what we're gonna cover today. You're definitely gonna wanna watch this video, guys. I think this is a huge long-term opportunity. Without further ado, let's get started. All right, guys, KnowBe4. Now, this is a brand new deck from August here. I'm going to go through some of the highlights. I'm going to do a deep dive coverage on this stock, and I definitely think you'll be interested in this one. I'm going to give you my opinion on the stock price as well later in the video. I know a couple people have been asking about trying to find some stocks that haven't run quite as hard. And this one could be one of those. Definitely stay tuned for my opinion on the price. So, key investment highlights. This really is a massive global opportunity. And as I mentioned in the intro, it addresses that human layer, right? The first line of defense. So KnowBe4, guys, it's an AI machine learning driven SaaS platform that really leverages a proprietary data set. So I think there are some barriers to entry here. It's not one of those things that can be easily copied. Now, there is a lot of competition in this space, but I really do think that these guys are the best of breed, and I'm going to show you why. Easy to deploy. It's really scalable, which is important. So small companies, medium-sized companies, large companies, all sizes and verticals can easily deploy the software. Now, this thing actually has 80% plus margins, which is pretty solid, but positive free cash flow from inception, which is sometimes rare in this space. So let's dig in further. So this stock isn't necessarily going to be hyper growth. We're going to talk more about the valuation later. $237 million though in annualized Q2 2021 revenue. The ARR is $241 million this last quarter, 40% ARR growth. So again, not hyper growth like some of the stocks we see with 100% ARR growth, but this also isn't priced as expensively as some of those stocks as well. 25% plus free cash flow margin. That's actually pretty impressive, really. And then 85% gross margins here. So now in the last video, I actually covered this slide. You talk about like the four horsemen of cybersecurity and then that human layer. They're trying to be that best of breed for the human layer when you kind of complete that cybersecurity puzzle for an organization. Now this slide, I'm not sure if it makes me want to buy more of these other stocks or actually buy KnowBe4, but some of the favorites on here, guys, Zscaler, Adka, and CrowdStrike, you can see on the left. Zscaler has 5,000 or so customers according to this. Adka, like Octopus, has 11,000. CrowdStrike has 10,000. KnowBe4 has 41,000 customer count. So you know, it definitely shows you that we're in the early innings when you think of cybersecurity. It makes me very bullish, even more bullish on this space, especially when you think of the four horsemen. They're expensive, but I'm telling you, there's so much growth left. I think in 5 or 10 years, you look at these stocks and you're probably going to think these prices are inexpensive. Listen to this, guys. Verizon 2021 data breach investigations report, 85% of data breaches involved a human element. Well, to me, it makes sense. If I can go to a CIO and I can present this to him or her and say, hey, you know, it's great that you have CrowdStrike and they're using these other tools, but you need to actually train your employees on what not to do. 85% of data breaches actually involve a human element. So let's train your employees on what not to do to stop it in its tracks. 87% year-over-year increase in social engineering scams. You think of like phishing emails, and they're getting better and better. It used to be like every word was misspelled and it was clear as day that it was a phishing email. Now you're seeing some of these that actually are hard to tell. Even for me, sometimes they're hard to tell if they're real or not. So you could see why people click on these links and get businesses and organizations in trouble. And you're seeing more and more of these cybersecurity attacks. So I think this entire vertical is really important, this entire space. When you think of endpoint security, you know, identity management, all these different things we talk about, but this is an important layer that I think is overlooked. In trading, oftentimes, especially in enterprises in corporate America and just corporate business globally, a lot of times training is overlooked, unfortunately. And I think we need to change that. And I think with these guys, they need to have an aggressive sales force that can get out and hit the streets and get in front of these decision makers, because they've got some powerful data. If I'm a salesperson, that can really help sell my case to an organization. Like, hey, here are the facts. My product can help prevent this. And here's the data that supports why the return on investment is so powerful by using my service. I mean, to me, I think that's a pretty powerful message. And as a salesperson, a former salesperson, in the software space, to me, it would be an easy sell. So you look at this is 2021 data breach investigations from Verizon. You can see social engineering is actually just off the charts and growing. And you look at things like denial of service and lost and stolen assets, privilege misuse. Those are actually on the decline. So you look at the ones that are going up, social engineering is the one that's really just skyrocketing. And that's what KnowBe4 can really help prevent the most. So this is key, guys. Organizations globally, they've invested massively on cybersecurity. So they're spending millions and millions of dollars to protect themselves with these SaaS type solutions, yet breaches continue to increase. And number of reported breaches just keeps going higher and higher and higher. And what this is saying is train your employees on what not to do. And that's part of your solution. You can't just buy a piece of software and expect it to do everything. Your employees also have to be intelligent enough to avoid certain situations. This is powerful. Ineffectiveness of existing security awareness offerings has resulted in significant underinvestment. This is where I talk about training. It's often overlooked. You look at the human element there at 3%, identity 14%, web 14%, endpoint. So you think of CrowdStrike, that's endpoint security, that's 22%. You think of network, that's 47%. So when I talk about 4 horsemen, if you don't know what that means, if you want to learn more about cloud, SaaS type stocks, definitely subscribe to the channel. Go check out, I've got a playlist. I think it's called Eric's favorite cloud stocks or cloud picks. And it goes through, I've got a top 10 video. It's a 2-part series. It's about an hour and a half long that goes deep dive and covers the 4 horsemen of cybersecurity and explains what they are and what they do. And that really covers this network, endpoint, web, and identity piece. This 5th piece would be that human element, which is significantly underinvested in and could be a massive global opportunity in the upcoming years. This is going to be important for traction going forward. Regulatory environments are starting to realize the importance of training employees. You think of the National Institute of Standards and Technology. This is a quote: provide practical exercises and literacy training that stimulate events and incidents. Practical exercises include non-notice social engineering attempts. So you need to actually see what cyber criminals might bring at you to know what to look for, right? If you have no idea what to look for and you don't have any awareness about this kind of stuff, it's easy for you to click the wrong link and get your organization in trouble. This is a really powerful quote here from the New York State Department of Financial Services. Employee awareness of their network security obligations and anti-phishing training in particular are critical. Required cybersecurity awareness training should include recurrent phishing training, including how to spot, avoid, and report phishing attempts. Is your organization doing this? A lot aren't. And it's becoming more important. The awareness is getting there, guys, to say, hey, maybe we need to actually show people what to avoid, and that might help stop the problem. Instead of just relying just simply on SaaS software running in the background, let's train our employees on the front line to know what to look for. I showed this on the last video as well, but KnowBe4 platform, purpose-built to protect the human layer. The reason it was included in the AI series is because it's really built around AI machine learning. If you look at the bottom of your screen, it says machine learning, artificial intelligence. You've got analytics, you got engaging content, cloud-based software. A lot of great things going on here. And you can see assess, train, analyze, user behavior, compliance plus, workflow, all these cool things, audit risk. So it's this entire solution for security awareness and training for your organization and for your employees. Okay, so this one's interesting because you can think of it as the first line of defense or the last line of defense. I really think of the human element, that human layer, as your first line of defense. But here they're saying KnowBe4 makes the human layer the last line of defense. They're saying that all the software kind of has your back and you're the last line of defense. I honestly think that the first line of defense is the employee, because if they don't click the phishing link to begin with, you don't need any of the software behind it to have your back, if that makes sense. But this is a dedicated security awareness platform, purpose-built to alter human behavior, to make them be aware of what not to do. It strengthens security posture by reducing the risk of social engineering, complements existing security infrastructure. And that's what's really cool about this company and this stock. It's not meant to replace the cybersecurity stocks that you already have in your portfolio. It's really meant to complement and even enhance. So you can see they have a path here of $1 billion in ARR. Obviously, that would be huge because we'll show some of the financials and stuff later. But if they actually make this come to fruition, this could be a great investment. I mentioned this earlier briefly, but it really can target small and medium businesses as well as large enterprises. So it's very, very scalable, really for any type of environment or any type of vertical. Now, KnowBe4 is saying this is an under-penetrated market and that the total addressable market, the TAM, is about $18 billion. And you can kind of see how they break that down on your screen. Obviously, $18 billion is a lot of money. And you can't just make investments based on these investor decks and just believe that the total addressable market's that. Of course, they're going to sugarcoat things and make it appear as good as it possibly can. But nonetheless, it's important to get an idea or some insight of where the business think it could go in terms of total addressable market. Now, there's a lot of competition too, and I'll show you that here in a second. So strategic moats, they're talking about, scale and recognition we talked about. They have a strategic patent library, which is important. It's AI and machine learning oriented. They've got a dedicated platform that's data-driven insight, reporting analytics. It has automated training campaigns that constantly update. Machine learning and AI, they can actually integrate products in, organization-wide implementation, and so on. So here's the funnel, right? So KnowBe4 platform generates a rich data set that drives continual improvement in results. So they have global phishing campaigns, threat intel, effectiveness of content, and it's funneling down. So it collects intelligence, it runs campaigns to change user behaviors, analyzes, and then reports back to the organization. And you can see on the left-hand side, you've got AI and ML, you've got company risk scoring, and then individual risk scoring. So you can actually find the individuals in your organization that are highest threats, and you can spend more time with them and make sure they get trained up. I think this is really important to understand the business, right? So delivering quantifiable results for customers, okay? You look at the training period and you can see total months since adoption. So then 8x reduction basically in social engineering attempts, okay? Initial baseline percentage pre-training is 37.9%. And you can see 12 months later, 4.7%. That's pretty powerful. Again, if I'm delivering this message to a CIO and I'm presenting this to a CIO, to me, this is an easy sell to an organization. If you look at the investment it costs to train your employees, to me, it makes sense for an organization to invest in their employees and to look at something like KnowBe4 awareness training. We showed this last time, but really fast. So KnowBe4 is on the top right. That is really a leader with the strongest strategy and stronger current offering. There is a lot of competition, as you can see on your screen. There's some names in here that are actually publicly traded as well, but KnowBe4 really is the best of breed. I thought this was really interesting, guys. So Kevin Mitnick, okay, if you know anything about cyber criminals and hacking history, they call this guy the world's most famous hacker. And he really is a consultant now that tries to help organizations fight against the bad guys, so to speak. And they've actually hired him, KnowBe4 has hired him as their chief hacking officer. You can see here. He worked with the KnowBe4 CEO for 8 months to distill Kevin's 30 plus years of firsthand hacking experience into online training modules for employees in an office environment. Again, this is really easy for me to sell. They need to get more salespeople and sell this to every organization because all this stuff is super powerful. If I go into a boardroom and I'm in front of executives, or if I'm doing a Zoom meeting now, if I'm doing a meeting and I have all this data to present compared to my competitors, I think this is a home run, easy sell. So it's like, hey man, we've got Kevin Mitnick, he's the world's most famous cyber criminal or hacker, and he's actually our chief hacking officer. And we spent 8 months working with him to develop these training modules to make sure that you get the best of breed training for your your employees, right? I mean, sign me up. Where do I sign? So anyways, I thought this was really powerful. Thought I'd share it. Now, these guys have actually won quite a few awards, but you can also see top 15 apps by number of organizations. And you can see 2018, it was 12th, and it grew in 2019. And in 2020, if you look at some of those names, it's actually the 5th in 2020, behind only a few others that aren't surprising at all. If you look at those names above it, I mean, that's actually pretty impressive if you look at where these guys are in 2020. So people are really starting to catch on to the importance of this, and I think it might just be getting started. Talking more about popular apps by category, security, look at the list. KnowBe4 training awareness right there, boom. I mean, there's some big names on here, some big companies. It's surprising to see KnowBe4 next to some of these names. If you haven't heard of KnowBe4 before I brought it to YouTube here, you might not know about it. And to see it next to some of these other names is actually kind of impressive. All right, let's get into some financials and talk about the price of the stock and see if it's worth investing in. It's trading at a little over $25 a share right now. The ticker on this is KNBE. I'll show you here in a second. So sufficient scale, we've talked about this, 241 million of ARR, rapid growth. This isn't hyper growth, but it's pretty solid growth, especially considering they have free cash flow margins. So 42% year over year ARR growth this last quarter, 25% plus on that free cash flow margin this last quarter, 85% plus gross margins. So that's showing you the subscription type model, right? Generally higher margins, which is good as an investor. Their year-over-year revenue growth, 43%. I think they could actually ramp this. So a lot of times you see hyper growth companies, they have 100% growth and they're actually starting to decelerate. I think it's possible that KnowBe4, if people start to catch on to this and that they can expand their sales team and get some partnerships, I think you could actually see the numbers accelerate upwards over the next couple of years because it's so under invested in and underappreciated. If they could really spread that message, I think they could actually ramp their growth up even higher than these numbers here. As you can see, their growth is solid. Number of customers has grown steadily from 2018 at 28% growth. Their GAAP revenue, 57% growth from 2018. That's actually a pretty impressive number. The ARR has grown 50%. So that's from 89 million to 241 million. So these guys are starting to accelerate some of this growth. This is really what you want to see as an investor. So now this company hasn't really been around that long, guys. All cohorts have expanded since inception. That's actually pretty impressive. And you can see the growth trajectory is quite nice. This is always important when I think of these software related type SaaS cloud type models. You want upsell and cross-sell ability and scalability. And this company really is the epitome of that. You can see the accounts with multiple products. It grew from 1.2% in 2018 all the way up to, in this last quarter, H1 2021, 17%. So they still have a lot of room to grow there. Total accounts with multiple products went from 260 to 7,060. I mean, you can see how this scale is just ramping up very quickly. Now, their margin profile, when you think of gross margins, it's actually really good and it's gotten better. So it went from 83% to 85 to 86%. You look at their non-GAAP operating margins, actually gone from -11 to a positive 9%. Their free cash flow margins have grown from 12% to 30%. Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit more about the stock price and what I'm going to do with the stock. So this is actually a smaller cap. It's 4.24 billion. It's trading at $26.11. Now, this thing was just an IPO back in April, and the price actually ranges all over the place. The low was $16.70 sometime in the May area, and the high was actually $36.67. So it has made a nice pullback. If I look at it, some of the numbers here, guys, I did some crunching on this one. Okay, so KnowBe4, ticker KNBE. They have a year-over-year NTM revenue growth rate about 28%. So their EV to NTM revenue is about a 15.4x. Their rule of 40, if you do a true rule of 40, not the quick and dirty method, is a 67, so 67%. Magic number is about a 0.8. So what does that tell me as an investor, especially one who understands SaaS and is really my background? It means it's a little bit expensive for me at $26. I think if you could get this thing at 20 or less, when it was down at $16.77, that was actually a pretty good opportunity. I don't own any shares. I missed that price, but I think if this thing could pull back closer to $20, that's where I'd want to add. Now, with that said, it might not happen because it was $37 and it's pulled back nicely. And there are a lot of bulls that actually like this. Now, it doesn't have a lot of volume, guys. 175,221 volume. The 90-day average volume is 621,000. So not the lowest volume stock I've ever seen in the world, but definitely a lower volume. But again, it's a smaller cap, about $4.25 billion. So, and it's not very well known. It was an IPO in April. A lot of people just don't know about it yet. So I'm bringing it to you. I mean, could it be a buy at $25, $26 as a long-term investment? Probably. I'd like to have that probably closer to $20. I do have one favor. I definitely, if you're new to the channel, guys, I need you to please subscribe, click the little bell to get notifications. You're not going to want to miss the next videos. I'm just getting started. I do new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. There are days where I don't want to do a new video on Tuesday and Thursday, but I keep doing it anyway because that's what I've promised to you as the audience. And if these videos are helpful, guys, I really appreciate the likes. I appreciate the comments. The support of the last couple of weeks has been really amazing. It's helped me kind of push through a tougher time. So I definitely appreciate you guys very much. Those likes and those comments and watching that video, I can see the stats of how long people watch videos. When you watch the whole video in its entirety and I get good watch time, that actually makes me feel like the time I'm putting into these videos is well worth my effort and that people are learning from them. When I've got low watch time and I don't have likes and comments, it makes me feel like, hey man, I'm financially independent. Maybe I don't need to make another video today. So I want to keep that commitment to you in return. Just keep the support because it helps me a lot. And I really need that to kind of drive me to keep doing more. Okay, guys. So I appreciate your time and attention. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care.